Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. This is Joe with the Local Search Association, and I'd like to welcome all of you to LSA's webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Balancing Act, Successfully Adding Mobile to Your Marketing Mix, and will be brought to you by our guest presenter, Pete DiStefano from ReachLocal. So with that, let's get started. Over to you, Pete.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I really appreciate the time today. This topic with regard to mobile is fascinating to me. I'm a little geek at heart, so I love all the different devices, and I know how I've incorporated all this stuff into my life. But it has become such a big deal, and I'm sure everyone on the phone, to some extent, has one of these devices literally attached to your appendage. And it's funny, and I talk to a lot of people about this whole idea with smartphones and the way people have access 24/7 to people, and it's kind of like there's a camp that hates it, right? Because it's like, I can never have, my own time. I've always got this connection. And then there's the other camp that loves it because they love to be able to get that immediate connection if someone wants to communicate. As business owners, whether it's the clients we're supporting and the business we're trying to grow ourselves, you got to find yourself hopping in that camp that loves the fact that these things exist. Even if personally you think it's a little bit of a struggle that kind of takes over our lives. But the dominance of mobile is, no one's going to question that. And today I'm going to talk about mobile strategy, and when I've talked to a lot of our prospects or customers, and as you deal with your own clients or quite frankly your own business, if you don't have a mobile strategy, you need to get one. I mean, stopping short of calling your client nuts, you need to have a mobile strategy because, and you're going to hear me say this a couple times today, it's an opportunity. At some point it's going to be, you better do it, because if you don't, everyone you compete with is going to be doing it. But today, based on where it is, although it's growing very quickly, it's an opportunity that you could differentiate yourself, or your clients can differentiate themselves. I'm going to share a lot of numbers. The whole purpose of sharing statistics is to make it very clear that this is real. This is not just smoke and mirrors. This is not a fad. This is really happening, and you should take it seriously. And a lot of things I'm going to share today, I'm guessing you're going to say, well, sure, I know that. Well, there's a lot of things in life we know we should be doing, but for some reason we either don't put a priority on it or we don't get around to it. This might be some of the things we talked about today. You're going to look at and say, well, that's not really rocket science, and I'll agree. The point for today is to have everyone here take some action, or help your client take some action. So let me start the flow of numbers. 85% of people say that mobile devices are a central part of every life. I've joked before that most of us take our mobile phones to bed with us every night. And that sounds a little weird, but it's true, because we have it right there by our nightstand. And some of us might silence it, and some of us do just the opposite. But it has become part of everybody's life. I mean, literally everyone's life. And when you look at that, so, well, gee, that's interesting. Why do you care? Well, again, it's obvious. There's an opportunity because of the way people are using the technology today, and ways for you to grow, or your clients to grow your business. So we talk about mobile strategy, and we talk a lot about smartphones. But when you look at a mobile strategy, you have to look at that in the context of all the different devices and form factors that people use today. And the numbers are changing, by the way. Today, computers are all about productivity. Your smartphone's always on, always active, always in someone's pocket, by the nightstand. And today, the data shows that tablets are mostly used for entertainment. Well, that's shifting. That's changing over time. And then the form factors, you talk about, you got your smartphone, and then it was the 10-inch tablet, because Apple was very clear that that's the only one that was that valid. Well, now even Apple's got a 7-inch iPad mini. And then you have smartphones that are getting bigger, and even Apple again succumbed to that, to where they have now a bigger iPhone. So the point is, there's multiple form factors. And all of those form factors can be looked at as dollar signs or opportunities to drive business. And you need to be aware of how do I leverage all of those different form factors in a way that will maximize opportunities to drive business. So the next thing we talk about is the shift in advertising. Digital advertising revenue passed broadcast television for the first time ever, hitting $40 billion. So digital advertising has surpassed broadcast. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking of calling up and canceling your Super Bowl ads. Well, I wouldn't do that quite yet. That's still probably a good way to get a lot of eyeballs. But when you think about the money that's being spent, digital has surpassed television advertising. And more importantly, the one element that's growing faster than any digital advertising is mobile. Okay? Growing at 110%, that was in 2013, and it continues to pick up momentum. It's greater than 70% of all digital advertising. Again, it continues to grow. Now, I'm going to say this now, and I'll probably say it again with a couple other statistics later, but your clients both still have opportunities to differentiate and take advantage of this growth before literally it becomes, as I mentioned earlier, to the point where it's you have got to do it just to compete. Where today I still believe, and this is my opinion based on what I've seen, there's an opportunity to differentiate and take advantage, but it's not going to be long before you have to do it. So whatever you do, you need a mobile strategy, and you'll hear me, that'll be a common theme you'll hear me mention several times as we move forward. Okay, so what's an effective digital marketing strategy? Well, one thing is it requires mobile. Your website, search engines value mobile sites. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this, but by having a mobile site, a website that is built and supports mobile, you actually get a higher ranking for your SEO and for your search engine scores. The other thing is mobile searches convert more quickly. And when we talk more about that, you see a statistic here. More than 60% of conversations resulting from a local search on a smartphone were made within a few hours of the research process. Now, depending on the model that your clients are in or what you have, clearly that becomes obvious. That there's certain types of business where it will convert a lot quicker because I'm looking for a restaurant, right? Or I'm looking to go purchase something and using my mobile device, that converts a lot quicker. Again, great opportunity with all those mobile searches going on, and I'm going to talk also about the audiences that are leveraging mobile and smartphones from a demographics perspective and why that makes a big deal. So in addition to a website that is mobile friendly, having search friendly on your mobile, because there are so many people that are leveraging mobile before they make a purchase, and the opportunity to do advertising, actually in-app advertising as well as display advertising, all of those can make a huge difference if you have a strategy targeting mobile. So it's not just having a mobile-friendly site and being able to be found, but also to do some specific advertising specific to mobile. Okay, so what does mobile-friendly mean? I'm sure many of you have heard of mobile-friendly. You've heard of something called responsive. The next slide you see here, hopefully, I'm assuming everyone here has now seen a slide I have that says, what's wrong with this picture? There's a tablet, and then there's a mobile smartphone. And it's basically showing two different types of implementations that have taken no considerations into being a mobile-friendly device. Okay. The website on the right, if you can see it, it's heavy with content. It's got all sorts of choices. The phone number is not really prominent. Matter of fact, I'm a big guy, so I've got pretty big fingers. But if you look at that tablet or you look at the example of the mobile device, I don't care how small and slender you are, it's hard for you to navigate through that. The mobile phone example also is using Flash, which Apple doesn't support Flash, so all the images aren't showing up correctly. The one on the right with the pink, I mean, in general, that's just a terrible design for a website, regardless of whether it's mobile or not. But you can imagine, and I'll tell you, I just had an example last night. I was coming home from a trip and got an email. I'm a hockey fan, and the Dallas Stars had a special offer, half-price tickets plus T-shirts for a game coming up on Saturday. So, cool. I was on my phone, and I was going to buy some tickets. OMG. The experience was awful. They did not have a mobile-friendly site. They did not have a responsive site, and I'll talk about that in a few moments. And I went to try to simply order 4 tickets. And the way I kept having to navigate the screen to get to the point where finally I couldn't do it, and I got to the point, and then it also required me to sign up for an account. That experience was so bad, I didn't buy the tickets. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to start hating the Dallas Stars, but it definitely caused an experience that frustrated me. Now, I've actually since called them, sharing my concerns, not only because I do this for a living, but as a consumer, it really pissed me off, quite frankly, that it was that difficult to get those tickets. So, you know, I'm sure you've had your examples as well. So what you're seeing on this slide, this is the reason you need to have a mobile strategy and you need to have a mobile-friendly site. So what does that mean? And this next statistic is really just talking about other people like myself. If they have a bad experience, they're less likely to engage with that company. And as you all know, because all of this is electronic and digital, if I get a bad experience with one place, I'll just go to somebody else if they can't satisfy what I need. So now let's talk about the positive elements, okay? A clean, professional design across all screens. Now I'll tell you, that is a best-in-class mobile design, but that's also a best-in-class design for any website. A strong call to action. Again, I also believe that is as relevant to a regular, a website that supports a full desktop. But responsive design, now what responsive means is whether I'm on a 27-inch screen or I'm in a 5-inch mobile or a 10-inch tablet, that website adjusts its layout to where it still makes it easy for me to understand what it is that company does, what services they offer, and how I can engage with them. And a responsive design will automatically change the layout, so when I'm looking at it from a smartphone, I still can clearly see the proper information. I'll show you some examples of that in a moment. Click-to-call capability, huge. So you need to have a site that also is touch optimized. But being able to have that number prominent at all times and being able to just literally push, click, and make that phone call. Then alternative means to contact. You know, I'm going to talk about my daughter in a little bit because she happens to be in a class of people that I think are driving as much as $1.7 trillion of spend for all the companies that we're talking about. It's really important that you understand this audience, and that although they are just, they bow to the smartphone, they don't actually like to use it as a phone. They like to use it as a communication device. So you need to provide other ways for people to communicate. So whether it's click to call or it's a chat or it's a form, but multiple ways for people to connect with you, to interact with you are very important. And then knowing what amount of leads, where the traffic's coming from is really important. So you can attribute where the lead's coming from. And then we'll talk about following up in an automated fashion. Now, again, all of these things, 7 and 8 again, are best-in-class things you would do for your web presence, whether it's mobile or whether it's a desktop. So when you talk about having a responsive design, we're basically now saying, forget about building a website for your desktop and building a website for a smartphone. It's building a website that adjusts its layout so it presents the best web presence possible, regardless of what that form factor is. Okay, so here's a couple of examples of what I would call really nice designs. Here's an example of the same site being represented in two different form factors. Clearly, the phone number is there. It's clear and easy to see. Again, click to call, you can't tell, but having that capability. But it also makes it clear, whether you're on that smartphone, what do these people do and how do I learn more about them? And what opportunities do I have to engage, whether it's clicking on the promotions or getting started or learning more about the services they provide. So here's an example. You're also consistent in your look and feel. So regardless of the device, that brand, if you will, that emotion that the company is trying to communicate through the design of their website comes out regardless of the platform. So here's another example I talked about where you want to feed people a variety of ways because different people like to communicate differently. So here's an example where these are all mobile responsive. It shows chat, so it's an opportunity for someone to engage through texting or chatting. Clearly, you do click to call, or they could fill out a form. Now, I'll tell you, depending on age groups and the type of person someone is, this becomes very important. I'm going to start to bring up a group called the Millennials or Generation Y. I believe it started, I think it's like 1990 or 91 to, I forget what the date is. My daughter was born in 1993, so she's one of those Generation Y. And it's really important to understand those folks because, like I said, they don't like to talk on the phone. Matter of fact, I got to a point where all of my communication with my daughter, she's going to college now, and we communicate a lot, but it's always through text or she'll do a Snapchat or Instagram or she'll text me. And I do believe she speaks English because I actually have some recordings in the past where there's videos where she actually talks. But in the last 4 or 5 years, I don't think I've heard her much. I've gotten lots of text. And I joke here a little bit, but this whole group is fascinating. This whole group, millennials, they are known to be what is called a prosumer. They are like the adopters, the early adopters of all of this technology. And they are all about doing research online. And they are all about sharing that information. I'm sure many of your companies have grown, and I'm sure a lot of your clients, your small and medium businesses, talk about how they've grown through word of mouth. And that's a cool story. Well, in this new world with these Generation Y and a lot of folks, it's taking that whole word of mouth and it's putting it on steroids. It's getting word of mouth and it going viral because they're leveraging technology to communicate. And they will tell people how they feel about a business and what they think about a business. So it's really important for your clients as well as yourself that when they put together a mobile strategy, that they're thinking in terms of the different people and how they use technology. So here's an example. You've got chat, you've got the phone, and you've got forms. You might have different offerings. For that millennial group, a lot of these work great. But for those folks who traditionally still like to, dial a phone, having that capability as well. So it's really important they have multiple ways for people to contact you. And there is something I'm going to share today. Again, this is another one of those things that you're going to think, wow, this is simple. And this is really important for you to impart on your clients. When the phone rings, they've got to answer the phone. Yeah, we talk a lot about this mobile strategy and how important it is, web presence, and how it's going to help generate more opportunities. But after the opportunity presents itself, you got to seal the deal. You got to follow up. You've got to make sure you communicate back. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on when we talk about reporting and tracking and really understanding what it is that's come to my business or to your client's business, and how do I make sure I capitalize on that. At the risk of being a little redundant, I've got this little statistic. 78% of Gen Y says mobile phone is their preferred communication device. But remember, they hate to talk on the phone. Maybe some of your kids or your friends do, but for the most part, they love to leverage the technology to communicate, but they're using other means in addition to using the telephone. All right, you can go to the next slide. Okay, so it's real important, and I started to mention that on the previous slide, that you know the sources of the traffic and the visitors that are coming to your site that are interested in your company or quite frankly, your client's company. And being able to communicate that information to know how many leads they have coming in and being able to engage and understand where they've come from over time, it'll either help you guide your clients better, or for them to better understand where they're spending their money and how to make better investments. Obviously spend more money where things are working and spend less money where they're not working. So I think it's really important. Again, this is for mobile. Again, this is something that also applies across the board. I think we're going to get to a point here where we're talking about web presence. And we're not going to talk about mobile because it's going to be about any one of the different form factors. But it's really important to know where things are coming from. However, when it comes to advertising, and you have very specific mobile-based advertising, you want to be able to differentiate whether or not they came to you through a mobile ad, as opposed, whether it's an in-app ad or some kind of display ad, as opposed to something that was just generally a call to action that you might have had or your client might have had on their site. Okay? Next thing is about follow-up, and this goes back to I made a statement that I'm sure many of you said, well, duh, when I said, when they call, answer the phone. Look, your client's business model, maybe it doesn't give them the capability to have off-hours folks. And a lot of times you want to recommend that they think about answering service, and depending on the size company, maybe even that's not going to work. So I get that, but so the thing you really need to impart on your clients is, to the extent they can, answer the phone. You talk about conversion rate by being able to connect to that person. And everything is so real time right now, and there's so many choices for your client's business, that if they don't get that person that finally said, hey, I'm interested, and talk to them and connect to them right away, they've got a very high chance to lose and not convert that lead. So let's just say it is a smaller business that they can't afford off hours and they can't afford a answering service. That's okay also. They've got to be very clear, okay, with their process in their company to make sure they follow up quickly. But doing things like automatically acknowledging that someone came to your site by sending an email saying, hey, thank you very much, we're very interested, we will be reaching out to you shortly, or we'll be reaching out to you within a certain period of time. Making sure that that first thing in the morning, the process, depending on your client's business, is to go through those phone messages that were after hours and they follow up. So being able to engage and again, whether it's through automated fashion, again, ReachLocal does a lot of this stuff. A lot of the things I've been talking about, ReachLocal has solutions to help automate this. But for your clients, it's real important, whether they're using a company like ReachLocal or some services that you provide, it's really important that all the energy gets spent to capture these leads. It's just a crime when they get wasted because the conversion doesn't take place because a process is not followed. And automating communication can really help when these are busy people doing whatever they do, regardless of what the industry is that they're in. So it's really important to communicate quickly and let them know that, yes, you think it's really important, their request, and you're going to get back to them. Okay, next one. So if you go to the next slide, so I'm going to talk about advertising specifically, and this is another one of those where I'm going to say opportunity. More than 8 out of 10 marketers identify mobile as significant, and only 3% of marketing budgets go into this area. I looked at this, matter of fact, I've presented this before, and people have said, what the heck, right? Well, it's one of those things where, and many of you that are on the phone, I'm sure because of all the workload you have, it's like one of those things you look at, when do I put a priority on it? Well, to me, the person that puts priority on leveraging, putting budget around mobile, okay, those are the companies that are going to be able to differentiate and basically get a significant bump in your opportunities and closed business because of where this market is right now. It's growing fast. It's growing lightning fast. But I still believe it's not at the early adopter phase. It's past that. But I still believe it's at that point where if you encourage this kind of approach, if you encourage that your clients put a serious mobile strategy in place, to me it's an opportunity for you to help your clients put a mobile strategy in place. you can help them make a big difference right now in their results. And quite frankly, I really feel strongly about this. It's inevitable that if they don't do it now, not only will they not take advantage of what I consider an early opportunity, they will then be trying to do catch-up, and that's even harder. So anyway, the real estate with mobile, as you know, continues to get smaller. So when you talk about advertising, you talk about ads, the more people are leveraging a smartphone and they're looking at the top of the screen, they're looking at the first page of the screen, etc., less real estate means you really want to do a better job with your advertising and your SEO, because the higher up you end up, especially for mobile and tablets where you have less real estate on that, what is now called, top fold, that's going to be that much important that you do a better job there. Make sense? Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So again, a little more data, 69%, okay, selected a listing that was near the top, 22% of the listing that was further down the search results page. And again, I just kind of, not to beat a dead horse, but you got less real estate with a mobile device, so it's real important that you do even a better job with your combination of your advertising and your SEO, and the combination of both of those. Next slide. Okay, I do want to make a comment again, and I believe this is another Gen Y statement. The people today are leveraging mobile, they're doing all sorts of research, and the content that you put out there, so it's not just having a good web presence. It's making sure everywhere your company or your client's company show up, okay, it's accurate and tells a story about who they are. Leveraging your expertise or your clients leveraging their expertise and content on other sites and social media. These prosumers are all over the place learning about a business or a topic. And again, these people are spending like just under $2 trillion a year on all sorts of services, from buying real estate to healthcare across the board. So it becomes more about your clients not just having a really strong website, it's the whole package. And as more and more of you have a complete set of offerings, again, an opportunity for you to help them grow in other areas, whether it be social media, content management, etc. So again, another example of an audience that spends a lot of money that's going to leverage all these elements beyond just having a very high-quality mobile site. Okay? So I've mentioned this a couple of times, advertising plus SEO, and I've said that I'm going to be redundant a little bit. This whole idea of 1 + 1 = 3, I don't think this is a new idea, but I've heard so many times I've talked to companies, well, where should I do a great job with my SEO, I don't need to spend, or I've got really good PPC ads. Well, the reality is, from a percentage perspective, by doing both, you definitely get a rise. And I've got some data here that suggests, what was the number? It was like 83% lift in those that are doing a really strong 89% lift in web traffic, with a nice combination between paid advertising and SEO. So this is not mobile specific, but it is as applicable to mobile because mobile is slowly or quickly taking over the world, and it applies, especially because of the smaller amount of real estate, that the better job you do with the combination of both your paid as well as your organic will pay dividends for your client. So again, another way for you to have an opportunity to drive more services that are going to help your client drive more business. This is a great thing that you should be pitching to your prospective or prospects or existing clients. Okay? Sorry, I just talked about that. We can go to the next slide. Okay, so an integrated approach to maximize leads. Talks about 73% of shoppers conduct research for local products and services on a mobile device before the contact is made. We were just talking about this before the webinar started, that the way we work, we will be maybe in front of our laptop or we'll be on a tablet. Eventually we end up with a mobile device, but that research that a shopper will conduct might cross a variety of different platforms. a variety of different applications. I just talked about the prosumer, or that Generation Y, that they might be reading some content, some articles about a certain topic. They might look at some advertising. They might be on a website. So nobody, and by the way, I think this is great for your businesses, because nobody can take a myopic view of driving digital advertising or digital marketing. You've got to look at an integrated approach. There's a variety of things that need to be done across the board. And again, to me, great opportunity for you to sell a set of services as you expand what you do for your clients. It's a great opportunity to support with this kind of data how important it is for your clients to have an integrated approach so they can significantly grow the business they get. Okay? So we're getting down to the end here. There's a couple other things I wanted to share about. This just kind of, by the way, this is actually really important. This is bigger than just an integrated approach. This is really important, and you know, we've had to do this ourselves with ReachLocal because we have so many local offices. It is really important that information is accurate. And again, I know I've said this before, probably twice in this presentation. It only takes a little bit of irritation to have someone just bump away from you and go on to the next company, or not you, maybe your clients. It's really important that you try to make sure that things are accurate across the board, that you're representing your company correctly, that that phone number is accurate, that someone answers the phone. Any one of these things that's not done well can push a consumer off to another company. So it's really important that you look at it across the board, and it's not just about one or two things, but it really is a nice program, and the kind of program that you can put in front of your clients. Okay? So we talked about this at great length. I want to go to the next slide. So as I wrap up, there's just a couple of things I want to make sure everyone can take away. Number one, number one's like duh, right? I mean, I think everyone knows that it's crazy to think that mobile devices are not just, again, I joke that with my daughter, literally, I think it's actually physically attached to her hand. And like as I thought, oh, it's my daughter. Well, she's a 21-year-old that has an apartment and has healthcare needs, and she's buying all sorts of services, and she's buying furniture, and she's going to dentists, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So it is crazy not to think about the opportunity, regardless of whether you're 21 or 60, the opportunity of taking advantage of the fact that everyone is mobile. And then again, understanding that the increase is significant and you should take advantage of that. And I do believe that today it's a time to differentiate, but that's not going to last very long. Mobile-friendly, responsive website, you get credit for that. So, I mean, Google gives you credit for having a mobile-friendly site. That's not why you want to do it. I mean, yeah, it is, because it's going to help your rankings. You're going to want to do it because the people who go and search for services that your customers might provide, they need to see that clearly, and it needs to be easy for them to do business with them. That's why they want to do it. And that's also why Google will give you credit, because Google talked, and Yahoo, all of them, they're really strong about the idea that the algorithms, all of the stuff they do is about improving the user experience. So as a company, you're going to get better rankings for having a better user experience. So I also tell people all the time, instead of focusing on how to beat the system, deliver on a call to action, deliver what the consumer is asking for. When you're working with companies, your clients, when someone's doing a search and they're doing a PPC, okay, that ad is advertising something. Serve up what you said you were going to advertise. To me, if you take that approach to offering up what the consumer is looking for, if your clients are giving them what they're asking for, they're going to do just fine. And I know there's a lot of technique as well, but to me, I believe if you're focused on a good user experience for your client and for your own business, I think you'll see the results continue to grow. And then finally, this whole idea of an integrated approach. I think this is huge, right? Whether it's mobile or otherwise, there are a variety of things, and by the way, these don't have to be expensive, and the services you provide your client don't have to kill them, but you can do a variety of things. So with an integrated approach, you're covering the waterfront for them, and they're gonna again be representing their business in a better light. But to ignore this Generation Y, to ignore mobile, and to not have a very specific mobile strategy, I don't think you're doing your customers a service unless you're really trying to educate them on how important that is. And if you haven't stepped up to that in your own company, I think it's really time for everyone to start looking at that, because it does make such a difference. Okay, so I know I kind of went rapid fire through that. I apologize earlier if my New York speak was moving faster than the slides, but I think at this point we're going to open up for Q&A.
Is there a difference between a mobile-friendly and responsive site, and if so, what is that difference?
Yeah, so, and I apologize if I didn't do a good job explaining it. You know, mobile-friendly means, and a lot of times we'll say, for those of you on the phone right now, feel free to take your cell phone, because I know it's close, and type in your own company's URL. If you go and type in the URL and you go to a website and it's just hard to read, or it's taking a site that was designed for, say, a form factor, and then that same site's jammed into a mobile site, either everything gets crunched and you can't function, because it's hard to tap on the right elements to get what you're trying to navigate to, or it doesn't have the appropriate information. Hey, what do you do? Hey, how do I get, what phone number is there so I can reach out? So mobile friendly and mobile responsive. Responsive is maybe more the technology, right? Meaning that when you go to a different form factor, the site changes. Okay, it changes to where it even changes the layout to where it represents the information where it's easy to read, easy to understand. So if it's responsive, that's one of the ways it becomes friendly. Now, it's also friendly if, like on any website, you prominently have a phone number so it's easy for people to communicate, or there's chat, or it's very easy to understand what is it that this company does, do they provide services that you're looking for. So responsive is really the technology part of mobile friendly, but mobile friendly goes beyond that. Have you built it clean? And we talked about it earlier, there were like 10 things I called out that make this a mobile friendly site. Responsive is more of the technology.
Is there a benefit to having a responsive site versus a mobile version of a desktop site? What are the benefits for SEO and what are the benefits of SEO for having the one responsive site?
Okay, so a couple of things. It's really important to have a mobile responsive site because, as I mentioned earlier, there's so many form factors now. It's not just a smartphone and a desktop and maybe a tablet. There's so many varieties of the form factors that you want responsive so it can adapt to the screen to provide the best layout and the best information. From an SEO perspective, literally, Google and others, they are looking for that. They will identify that, and they will score you higher in your ranking, and it'll contribute to you going higher in your ranking for SEO.
Okay, another one that came in. Why do you need to have chat or form fills if you have click to call?
Okay, so that's another good question. By the way, one of my colleagues just made another point that I missed. Thank you, Rosemary. The other reason to have responsive site, just on a maintenance perspective, right? You don't have to maintain multiple sets of code and multiple sites that have to be updated. With regard to your next question, people consume information differently. I talked a lot about my daughter. I love her. But Gen Y and others, some people don't like to use the phone. They'd rather text. They'd rather chat, fill out a form. So I used to always say this about training salespeople, right? They all consume information in different ways, so you have to provide different ways to communicate. It's the same thing here. Having a form that they can fill out where they can get some information, or they can chat with somebody real time, but they do it through typing, or, of course, having a phone number they can call. So having that variety supports different people and different ways they would like to engage with your company.
What if I can't afford to have a live answering service? What do you suggest?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's okay to have an answering machine. I think it needs to be welcoming. I mean, again, I know this is going to sound pretty obvious, so I apologize, but it's important that when that phone recording kicks in that you're inviting to the person who's calling. You try to communicate through that phone message that you really want their business and you really care about it, and then you'll get back to them right away. You can do that, but again, it's really important if you can't answer the phone that you have a process that says every hour, every 2 hours, I'm going to be checking that and getting back to people. And I've had the experiences myself, and I'm sure you guys have, and sharing this with your clients, where if honestly, I had one experience where I had a roof issue, and I think by the time 2 of the people got back to me, my roof had already been repaired and probably was getting ready to leak again. And it was amazing how long they took. Where the people who responded to me right away, and guess what? When company A didn't respond to me, I could go to company B, C, D, just like that. So I know I've mentioned that a couple of times. But you can get away with an answering machine, and that's cool. Just make sure that you're very professional and inviting with the recording. So a smaller business, they can do that. But then they got to follow up quickly. They have to have a process. I don't care if it's the owner of the business or it's the secretary or somebody's wife or somebody's husband, they should be reaching out fairly quickly.
With mobile, is it more important to focus on SEO or paid advertising?
Yeah, so it's funny. I talked about it earlier. Matter of fact, I had a debate with a guy. It wasn't a lot, but he felt really strongly about everything they were doing SEO, and he said I don't need to do any advertising. And the reality is, I don't think everything I've seen and all the data suggests you just can't do one or the other. I mean, part of it, with SEO, it's more I call blood and sweat versus paid. It's really about spending money, but there's an art to that as well, and that's why a lot of the services you all provide are so important. You've got to do a balance of both, and the data suggests when you do both, you'll get bigger. The reward will be bigger than the 2 individually, right? The sum is bigger than the whole, or the whole is bigger than the sum, whatever that saying is, you know what I'm saying. So I think it's really important not to say do one over the other. I think depending on your budget, depending on your company, your business, or your client's business, you need to have a nice balance of both, and I think the end result will be strong. Paid also equals better targeting, which for mobile is critical. You definitely want to do as much targeting as you can so you could focus on the right folks, right people.
With so many SMBs without websites still, are you finding that that the value proposition with mobile is maybe too advanced for some of these SMBs that you deal with, or do you think that kind of tying the their first foray into the website with their mobile strategy is kind of a good approach, or what are you finding in the market?
So first of all, I think that last part's a brilliant statement. Again, and being in technology my whole life, I find it hard to believe that an SMB wouldn't get that they need to have a website, right? But I think it's absolutely a great approach to say, hey, if they don't have one, start focusing on just for the sake of mobile. And again, use these slides. There's all sorts of data out there, but whatever the SMB is, there are thousands, there are hundreds of thousands, depending on where their client base is. If it's in a city, there are thousands of potential clients that they're missing out on because they don't have a web presence. And you can use mobile as a way to get them to finally get it. And like I said, I think we're getting to the point where it's no longer going to be about mobile. It's about having a presence regardless of the form factor. So I think you need to be professional, but you have got to look at them with sincerity and saying, please believe me, believe this data that the opportunities you have with leveraging digital, okay, to help grow your business is significant. And you might even play the card on, well, I'm sure that's the same company. For 20 years I've been doing this on, word of mouth. I would take that saying, you're absolutely right. Now here's a way to go exponential with word of mouth. That's kind of the approach I would take.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in, so we'll give back some folks some time. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Pete?
No, first of all, I appreciate everyone's time. Regardless of how you engage with ReachLocal or your clients, I really want to encourage a couple of things. You can see here on the site right now, there's our blog, the blog.reachlocal.com. And I joined ReachLocal 8 months ago, and I'm still beside myself on how amazing the content team is here. The education, the thought leadership they build into these ebooks, into the blog articles. If you never do a darn thing with ReachLocal or your clients, get them to sign up for our blog. Get them to get some, like this new ebook we had on the new rules of SEO. Huge value to anyone who cares about understanding how they could leverage SEO better to improve their business. So I'm very proud of what our company has to offer in partnering with you on the phone or working with you and your clients. But I can't tell you how proud I am about the work that the team has done. So this is really valuable for anyone to help them do a better job leveraging digital to grow their business. So I really do encourage that you guys engage. Other than that, I appreciate the time today, and I hope there was some nuggets of value in here, and you all get your mobile strategy on.
So actually, I one more question that just popped in right before we closed up. Do SEO and retargeting work together? If so, how?
So retargeting, I mean, retargeting is a form of advertising. So from that perspective, absolutely. When we talk about paid advertising and SEO collectively, retargeting is a form of advertising. So they work together no differently than PPC. PPC is a little more specific, but retargeting, it's a way to keep that company top of mind until they're ready to pull the trigger. So again, that's another way to be present and to be aware. So I do believe they work together in concert, not a whole lot different than other advertising capabilities that you have.
Okay, so I think we'll go ahead and wrap up now. Thanks, Pete, for conducting today's webinar. We really appreciate all the info. I also want to thank everyone for attending today. So this year we had a ton of great webinars, and for access to all of them, visit localsearchassociation.org/webinars. So we have some more big plans coming up in 2015, and we'll keep you all posted on that. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.